Alright, Erev Tov, we're back to the Kuzari class. Also, they're being recorded finally. So, hopefully we'll know what we're doing with these recordings, and then we will let you know where you can hear them.
Charlie? Is Charlie going to do it?
We'll figure it out.
Okay.
Right now we're on page 82. We're on 83. 82 and 83, that's what we're holding.
Yes.
I want to rewind a little bit just so that we know where we are. It's been a little bit of a break. I want to make sure that we're on the same page. We know what we're holding. I'm excited, so excited to be back learning Kuzari together. I have to tell you that this book, this is the Yisod HaYisodot. This book is the foundation of our belief. Everything we believe in is in this book. If you had this book and the Rambam and the Tanakh and the Shulchan Aruch, you'd be good to go.
Oh, okay.
You don't need anything else. That's the Torah. So, not just is it our belief system, but also the way we think and the way we understand things and the way we perceive things. The fact that this book is written in a dialogue form makes it very special. You know, he's not the only one. Many books were written in dialogue form. Unfortunately, over the years, this style of writing became very unpopular. And people changed this. You know, there's a famous English translation of the Kuzari. And if you went to buy it, you would not know where to find yourself. Because it's not actually the Kuzari. No, it's Rabbi Yecheskel Sarna, one of the giants of Ashkenaz. And he decided, listen, the style is outdated. Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. It's confusing. I'd rather put together the book more clear, more concise, step by step by step by step. He took apart the book, put it back together, no conversation, and they sell it as the English translation of the Kuzari. But it's not the English, it's a new book. Really, it's a new book. Because when you lose the discussion here, you lose the book itself. Another book like this, a famous book called the Mesilat Yesharim, The Path of the Just. The Mesilat Yesharim that we have today is written as a normal book, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 4. But in the Vatican, they had the original Mesilat Yesharim.
The original is in print?
Sure, we have it.
Somewhere in the bulk of it.
What's his name? I forget the rabbi. Rabbi Shoshana. He did it, and it has in the dialogue form.
It's a dialogue form, and the Ramchal wrote both. One because this was popular this time, and one because he knew that dialogue wasn't always so popular. But you have to understand where this dialogue comes from. We as Jews have always enjoyed dialogue form. You'll find very often in the Chumash, we're always having conversations. Jews, we talk a lot. But more than that, we find inside of the commentaries. We're always discussions. Why? Why does it have to? Why does it say what you're saying? Why the discussion? Why? Who cares what he said? To who he said? When he said it? Why?
It feels more or less like real people, not just like someone talking to you.
More
You feel like
applicable
you're
to
more part
life.
of a discussion.
Once you feel like you're part of a discussion. How is it more applicable to life?
It's more like it's practical, like it's something you can apply. Like it's,
Because it's in a dialogue form?
yeah,
Okay, interesting.
it's an interaction going on.
It's as if you feel what you have. You get the feeling, the flavor of what they were thinking.
So, you know, we kind of feel like we're in the middle of a movie.
Yeah.
Like we're in the middle of this discussion. I mean, we started with the Kuzari in the beginning when he started having dreams and search, and he went through Islam and Christianity and philosophy, and now he's here with the rabbi. That we went on this journey with him. And it's very, very engaging. It's very captivating when you're part of a discussion. That's the reason why the Seder Pesach, the most important night of the year, the Seder Pesach, that whole Haggadah is a conversation. This son, that son, the third son, this rabbi, that rabbi argued with this rabbi. The whole idea is to keep people involved, to keep people engaged. And I feel that very often we don't have this style of teaching anymore. We have a lot of lecturers in the world. Lecturers are people, they hire them, they come in for one night, they walk into a room, bam, some powerful message, they walk away, you never see them again. You never engage them. You never spoke with them. You never had a dialogue with them. You know, very often when I once brought somebody to listen to my rabbi speak, Harav Peretz. And he walked out of there saying, yeah, it was a nice class. Well, it was a nice class. Did you know the things he said? He said, what did he say? And I told him, I said, Rabbi Peretz didn't say those things. And I said, maybe I'm making it up. But once you engage someone in dialogue, you know the way they speak. You know the way they think. You know the way they feel. So when I go to my rabbi and I say, Rabbi, so can I do this? And he says, yeah. I know the answer is
No.
probably not. But you can do it because you don't care what I have to say anyways. This idea, so I walk out of the class saying, you cannot do this. The other guy says, but the rabbi said yes. Because you didn't know what our rabbi was saying. You didn't feel it. I sometimes do this to people. They ask me a question. Sure, I'll go for it. Okay. Or the other way around. No, you can't do. When you engage someone in a conversation, you know a little bit more about them. It's a little bit more of an intimate style of learning. We here feel like we are friends with Rabbi Yonatan Halevy. That we know exactly what's going through his head. We know who the Kuzari is. We know the kind of questions they're going to ask. We know Rabbi Yonatan Halevy has all kinds of funny answers back and pushes them off here and knocks them down over there. The Kuzari is the king of a country called Kuzari. You come sit with us, the same price.
I'm listening, but what's Kuzari?
The Kuzari is a book, a story really, was a true story between a king of Kuzari. He had dreams that he's serving Hashem with his thoughts, but not with his actions, and Hashem wants him to become a more complete Eved Hashem. So he goes to search out what's the right way to become Eved Hashem, and he meets Christians and Muslims. At the end, he meets the rabbi. This rabbi convinces him about Judaism. He converts to Judaism. His whole country converts to Judaism, and many of the Jews in Europe are actually descendants of the Kuzarim, of these.
I think it's Afghanistan of today. It's like Itzik, because Itzik also have good intentions. But
so like this is the dialogue. This is it's much more entertaining. And therefore, I ask if you ever feel at some point in this class that this is too much of a lecture and too little of a dialogue, please don't feel embarrassed to step in, because they explain something, to say, I want to ask something, I want to know something.
So bringing that up, so is it dialogue because of curiosity to find out more? The questions are more than just intellect? Are they deeper than intellect?
What do you mean? I'm not understanding what you're saying.
So when somebody give a lecture and opens it up for questions, the curiosity in finding out more than what the lecture was, is the curiosity of a person deeper than just intellect? Isn't it more coming out of a deeper than intellect?
Sure. So if a person was touched to the point where they're asking questions, there's something deeper in them that's trying to discover something. That's trying to dig through something.
Right.
That's why we say Lo kabdan melamed. We say in the Mishnah that someone who's very strict cannot be a teacher, because he doesn't allow people to ask questions. Velo habayshan lomed. And someone who's too shy can't study Torah either, because you have to have that ability to ask and to answer. You can't just speak all the time. You also have to speak. There was the Lubavitcher Rebbe once said. He said that it used to be that an educator had to speak 70% of the time and listen 30% of the time. He said today he thinks an educator has to speak 30% of the time and listen 70% of the time. It's a different generation, a different dor v'dor shav. Every generation has its own people, its own style, its own flavor. I think today might even have to listen more. Have to listen more. The people also share a lot of inner truth that comes out when they ask questions, and that's something very special. But not everyone appreciates questions. And when there are people who don't appreciate questions, my answer is always don't study Torah from them. Don't study Torah from people who don't appreciate your questions. It's very important to know. Because you are your question. You are who you are. You are the feelings that you're feeling. And if someone doesn't appreciate that, then you're learning something that's valuable, but it's not for you. It's not cut out for you. It's not tailor-made for you. My understanding of the world. So, I encourage you, if there's something that comes up, please don't be shy from it. We're here together. But this book, this class, this discussion, we're going out to the Chagim and we're going to get shaken up by that schedule, and then we're going to go into the winter and then it gets dark earlier than even now, and I know people say, oh, it's too late. This class, this learning, this discussion here that we're having, this is the basis of the whole entire Torah. Period. It's not another class. It's not another thing. If you need to miss something, miss praying in the afternoon. Come to this class. This is important. This Torah is important. So let's see what we were talking about last time. The rabbi and the king were having this argument. The Kuzari was telling the rabbi, Rabbi, I can't accept what you're saying. The philosophers, no, it's one thing to tell me that those people in India that had all kinds of fairy tales that they disagree with you, fine, you told me that they don't know anything. But what about the Greek philosophers? The famous Greek philosophers, the pillars of the world of wisdom and culture, they don't agree with you either. So how do you expect me to believe you over the Greek philosophers? So says the rabbi, and we spent about the last month and a half of Kuzari understanding the first half of what the rabbi said. Amar hechaver, says the rabbi, hafilosophim, the philosophers, ein lahashim otam, you cannot blame them for their mistaken beliefs. Mipnei, because shehem am shelo nachalu chokhmah velo Torah. This is a nation of people who not only did they not receive Torah on Mount Sinai, like who?
Us.
Like us, the Jewish people, or before the Jewish people, like
Yeah.
No one. For the Jewish people?
who are the predecessors of the Jewish people? We spoke about a nation that has the same exact history as the Jewish people. They were killed like the Jewish people. They ran away to Israel like the Jewish people.
The Ivrim.
The Ivrim, who are the children of
Shem.
Shem, the Hebrews, the children of Shem. Which is why it's very important that we are Shemim, we are Semites. Because we come from this original school of Shem. Shem were a people that had a connection to spirituality, to divinity. Just the name Shem and all kinds of understanding. Remember do you remember this class that we gave about Shem?
Yeah.
This was Shem is the everything that happened to Shem happened to the Jewish people. And therefore Shem, says the rabbi, they inherited wisdom, Torah, but the Greek philosophers, where do they inherit Torah from? And not only do they not inherit Torah, they also don't have chokhmah. They don't have any wisdom. Why? Because they're Greeks. And if you thought that's racist, let's hear even more. When he says Greeks, he's not talking about today's Greeks. He's talking about the Greeks in the times of his writing this book.
1,000 years ago.
Yeah, you're talking just like when the Gemara sometimes speaks about the Persians or the Egyptians. The Egyptians in the Gemara and the Torah are not the same Egyptians as today. Yeah, the nations changed. We're talking about here a specific country. V'yavan mibnei Yefet. He's not from Shem. Yavan comes from Yefet, HaShochonim b'Tzafon, which live in the north. V'chokhmah, and the wisdom, she Yerusha me'Adam, which we received as an inheritance from Adam HaRishon. V'chokhmah muchzeket b'koach Eloi, it's a divine wisdom. Einei nakim bezer Hashem. It's only from the children of Shem. She's Zgulat Noach. Shem is the chosen child of Noach. Just like Yitzchak is the chosen son of Abraham, and Yaakov is the chosen son of Yitzchak. There's a lineage, someone who continues their parents' path. And these are the children of Shem. Lo paska chokhmah v'lo tifsok min hasgula hi me'adam, and they never lost their direct chain, nor will they ever lose their direct chain. I was speaking to somebody about this recently. Yeah. When you go somewhere to a rabbi and ask for psikat halakha, for a ruling in halakha, in essence what you're doing is you're going to somebody and saying, what would Moshe Rabbeinu tell me now if he was here? And the rabbi, when he gives you a halakha, says, I'm doing this kedat Moshe v'Yisrael, like we do a wedding. I'm doing this the way that Moshe Rabbeinu would have done it to the Jewish people. And when you have a rabbi whose tradition is his own, or it belongs to a group that invented themselves, so it's nice, the person carries weight, but they didn't inherit this weight from Moshe Rabbeinu. They only go so far back as themselves, or their teacher, or their school, or wherever they come from. My friend recently got smicha, and he received the smicha from a student of Rabbi Soloveitchik. And at their smicha ceremony, they gave him a certificate which had his name and his rabbi's name and Rabbi Soloveitchik's name And Rabbi Soloveitchik's rabbi's name? All the way back until Moshe Rabbeinu.
Wow.
I saw it. We have such things. If you track your rabbi's rabbi down about 3 or 4 generations back, you can find out exactly how he's connected to Moshe Rabbeinu. Every single rabbi that has real smicha. I'm not talking about call 1-800 smicha. I don't know how those come, but I'm talking about somebody who's like a real rabbi who carries his weight. And it's unfortunate today that in this country especially, rabbis have become speakers, teachers, farmers. I don't know what they become. The rabbis they don't see themselves as, I am a continuation of Moshe Rabbeinu. That comes with a lot of power, but also with a lot of burden, with a lot of responsibility. The children of Shem have this special connection all the way back to Adam HaRishon, to the first human being who was ever created. He says the Greeks, they never got philosophy. You know where the Greeks got their philosophy from? They stole it from other people. They're plagiarists. The Persians had philosophy. The Romans had philosophy. The Greeks, they were the last guys in the block. They just took it over. And that's how you see every other nation, philosophy continued under them. Whereas in Greece, that was the last generation of philosophers. Because when you take something that's not yours, it doesn't last so long. When you take something from where it belongs and plant it somewhere else, most often that piece goes into shock, and then, like a person who has an organ transplant, even if it's a match, and sometimes these things, they don't work out, and then that piece dies. Well, but it belongs there. So what? But you took it from somewhere else that didn't belong here. The same thing with the Greeks. See, the Greeks may consider themselves wise, they may consider themselves philosophers, but they don't have any. Not only do they not have a tradition in Torah, they also don't have a tradition in philosophy. Where do they come from? You ever go to a university and say, "Who's your professor's professor?" The professors of the world, they consider themselves the elite of society. The elite of the elite. Who's your professor's professor? Some people know who their professor's professor is. Who's your professor's professor? Good luck.
It's interesting they don't even bother to ask you that.
Because
the title is more important than the depth of the title.
Because they live on a model.
That whoever came before them is important.
Very nice.
Right.
The crux of this problem is they don't believe that where they come from means much.
Well, you know why? Because if they believe in the theory of evolution, so the further back you go, the closer you are to the monkeys. So you want to be much further. Right? Exactly. Us, we believe that the closer you are to Moshe Rabbeinu, so of course you want to be closer.
So, this idea though, so they're the elite of society? They're the ones with the wisdom? Go and find a rabbi. Find somebody who inherited real wisdom from somebody. Okay, the whole world believes in Moshe Rabbeinu, and nobody can argue with that we come from generations. Even the groups that broke away from Judaism understand the fact that what do they call us? Orthodox. Why are we Orthodox? We do the things the same exact way. We're unchanging, we're obnoxious, we're not flexible. Good. So we do things the same way our forefathers did them all the way back.
Dictionary define Orthodox as mainstream.
Mainstream.
Really?
Okay, well maybe we're not Orthodox.
Interesting.
What does it mean?
Really?
Wow.
Let's
remember which.
Interesting.
So interesting.
let's
Right.
We may not be majority, but we're.
Yeah, she's really like that's cute.
that's a good definition. Let's keep reading. V'lo hayta chokhma b'Yavan. There was no wisdom in Greece. Ela me'et shegavru v'ne'etka chokhma alehem miparas. Rather, when they conquered the Persians and took their wisdom, v'el-paras mikazdim, and the Persians took it from the Kazdim. Those are the Babylonians. V'kamu bahem ha'filosofim ha'mefusamim b'yamim hahem, and that's when the great philosophers came out. Lo kodem leken v'lo lachar miken. The Greeks did not have philosophers, not before then and not afterwards. U'me'et sheshava ha'malchut la'romiim, and once this kingdom became Roman, lo kam bahem filosof mefusam adata. There was no great philosopher from them at all. I made a mistake before and I said the Romans. Greeks, Persians, Kazdim, the Babylonians. I didn't mean to add the Romans in before. Okay. So he's telling you, listen, you like the philosophers, but so what? So what? Who said that they're right? Who said they're right? Shem, you have to go to the children of Shem. I want to just dwell for a little moment longer on that name Shem. Shem, in the word Sham, Shem means a name, or just Shem is the name of a person. Sham, over there. Where are you going? Sham. I'm going over there. This word Shem, Shin Mem, refers to a destination, a goal, an objective. This is where I'm going. I have a clear path of where it is that I'm headed. If we speak about Shem, we're generally speaking about a secret goal that Shem has. As it says in Tilim, Asa Gevehu Ki Tilim Asa Gevehu Ki Edat Shmi. He knew my name, my Shem. And Hashem therefore says, I'm going to keep it a little bit hidden, a little bit mysterious. A person who knows where they're going has then the ability to manipulate and to make decisions and affect that journey. Someone says, I'm going to LA. So he can go straight to LA. He can take a stop by the ocean and relax for the day. He's in full control of where he's going at his pace and then the way he's going to get there. The same way that Shem knows I'm going towards HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and I have control over how we get to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, how we're going to reach HaKadosh Baruch Hu, how long the journey is going to take to get to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The people of Shem, and therefore the people of Am Yisrael, are the people who have the sole authority on matters of God, on matters of divinity, on matters of connecting to Hashem. You know, when Moshe Rabbeinu was standing by the burning bush, Moshe Rabbeinu, he has a mission. His mission, to get the Jewish people out of Egypt. Moshe Rabbeinu, there's one thing that bothers him over there. What's bothering him? So the Jewish people, I'm going to come and say, I came to save you. And what is the Jewish people going to tell me?
They're not going to believe him.
Why are they not going to believe him? What does he say? Oh, very nice. Hine anochi ba'al b'nei Yisrael. This is Shemot in the 3rd chapter. Hine anochi ba'al b'nei Yisrael. I will come to the Jewish people. V'amarti lehem, and I will tell them, Elohei avotechem shlachani lechem. The God of your forefathers sent me to come save you. V'amru li, and they will tell me, Mashmo. What's his name? What's his Shem? And what does Moshe Rabbeinu say? Ma umar alehem. I don't know what I'm going to tell them. Hashem, they're going to ask me your name, and I'm not going to know what to tell them. What? You don't know who you're talking to? Just say, Hashem sent me. What's the problem here? Something about this word Shem. There's something that Moshe Rabbeinu feels. It's like a secret password. So you go to that cave, the open sesame, the other doors open up. Moshe Rabbeinu says, there's a name that I need to know. And Moshe knows that if he comes to the Jewish people and says, I'm going to speak in the name of your forefathers, and they're going to say, yeah, so what's his name? And I say, I'm not going to have the right password, who's going to believe me? It's like, sometimes I feel bad for the Christian missionaries when they come to talk to us. Because they don't even speak our lingo. Like, if they spoke our lingo, they're a little bit more convincing. They know our words, they know how to say Hashem, they know how to say Eretz Yisrael. But they come to us and tell us about the land of Israel and the fires of hell, and they speak to us about, we don't even know what those words mean. They speak to us about sins and iniquities, and unless you're like an avid reader of the Art Scroll Chumash, you don't know what these words even mean. It's like, I'm going to come to you and say, I'm going to save you. And you say, what are you going to save me from? Well, I'm going to take you out of this kingdom and put you in the kingdom of grace. Jews don't even know what the kingdom of grace means. We've never heard of such a thing before.
I could never understand the concept.
Yeah, the concept.
I could never understand it.
So, we don't know what these words mean. So you're coming to save me. It's obvious I'm not going to listen to you. Because you don't speak my language. You don't speak my language. It's like, I'm going to ask the missionary, so let's sit down. Let's open up a Tanakh. You know how to read Hebrew? Doesn't know how to read Hebrew. You don't know how to read Hebrew, so how are you telling me how to read my book? How do you even have the gall to do such a thing? And that's what saves us. And our biggest problem is suddenly when the missionaries show up to us, not as Christians, but as Jews. Suddenly they speak Hebrew, they know words in Yiddish, they know, what time, davening is, and you're like, whoa, maybe he's really one of us, maybe, I don't know. That's when it gets confusing. Moshe Rabbeinu says, I'm going to go to the Jewish people, and I'm going to tell them, I came to save you. And then they say, who sent you? And I'm going to tell them, I don't know, God. So who's God? If you would go to your grandparents and say, do you believe in God? It was a different religion. I don't know who God is. I never heard the word God in my life. Who's God? Yud Kei Vav Kei. I heard of him before. Elohim. I've heard of him before. Tzevakot. I've heard of him before. Whoa. God? I've never heard of God before. Never heard of that name. So why do we use it now? I have a big complaint on people who use English words as translations for Hebrew words. An Avera is not a sin. Hashem is not God. We use them because that's what people understand. The Dibrat Torah, B'Shon Bnei Adam. The Torah speaks in the way that people understand. But sometimes the words people use are incorrect. And we don't believe in hell. We believe in Gehenom. Gehenom is not a nice place to be, but it's not hell. We don't believe in heaven either. Heaven, I don't know who goes to heaven. We believe in Gan Eden. We believe in Shamayim. We believe in Bedin Shel Mala. These are not words that we use. Oh, heaven. What's heaven? And suddenly we translate angels. What's an angel? Angels are not guys with wings, with little halos. They fly. That's not an angel. Maybe it's an angel, but it's not a malach. Suddenly we've let our terms be totally corrupted. So Moshe Rabbeinu, I cannot go to the Jewish people if I don't speak their language. So what does HaKadosh Baruch Hu tell him? Moshe Rabbeinu gets very frustrated because when Moshe goes to convince Paro, is he successful with convincing Paro? He says, let my people go. Is he successful in letting the Jewish people go? No, he's not, and he complains. And what does he tell HaKadosh Baruch Hu? He doesn't tell him I wasn't successful. He says, Ume'az bati el Paro, I came to Paro ledaber bishmecha, to speak in your name. Hera la'am hazeh v'atzel lo hitzalta et amecha. Moshe says, not only did I not save the Jewish people by using your name, I actually made it worse for the Jewish people. Every time Moshe Rabbeinu went, Paro made it worse. Moshe Rabbeinu has a complaint. He says, I used your Shem, and it didn't work out for me. The secret password didn't work out. This bothers Moshe Rabbeinu. The word Shem means a lot more than you think it does. It's not just a people, but it's some kind of secret password. It's why we use the word Hashem, the name. Why don't you just say Habore, the creator? Why Hashem? I'll tell you, my rabbi holds you shouldn't say Hashem. You should say Habore. You should say HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You should say whatever name. Maybe we're already here. You can say a name, the words that mean something. Hashem just means the name. Habore means the creator. But according to the Kuzari, there is depth to the word Shem. There is depth to the word name. Maybe while we're at it, I want to ask you something, please. We've been corrupted. We've been corrupted by there's a group of people, we call them the Yirei HaHora'ah, those who are afraid to give halachic rulings. Instead of telling you, yes, you're allowed to do something, they say, maybe it's better not to do it. Maybe it's good to do it. They give you all kinds of maybes. Maybe it's not an answer. Is it okay? Is it not okay? These Yirei HaHora'ah, these people who are afraid to make decisions, are not good for the Jewish people. And they make a lot of problems for us. And they're always telling us not to do things forever and ever and ever. You can never do anything because they don't know if you should do it or shouldn't do it. And so they always tell you not to do it. Comes out, at the end of the day, a person who wants to keep Shabbat, pretty much they have to take the hands, put them in handcuffs, and say, okay, I'm not doing anything today. That's what we have left. And then how are they going to do Kiddush? I don't know. That's a problem. Right? It's a problem, Chanan? He thinks it's a problem too. Yirei HaHora'ah. These Yirei HaHora'ah have also pushed the limit on things to the point where sometimes the things that they think are so good, they're actually doing things that are bad. I'll give you an example. People will tell you that they'll use the word kel. Kel. Instead of saying Hashem's name, El, they'll say kel. Or instead of saying Hashem's name, Elohim, they'll say Elokim. And they'll even say things like Ze Keli V'Anvehu. this is my God and I will glorify Him. When they want to do a mitzvah, Zek Keli Vanvehu. So according to Harav Masas, they're serving Avodah Zarah. Because we don't believe in a Keli. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you can't call Him Keli because the word Keli doesn't have a good connotation in the Hebrew. At best it means a vessel, and at worst it comes from the word klayon, or destruction. You want to say HaKadosh Baruch Hu? Say Ze Eli Vanvehu. This is my God, I'll glorify Him. Oh, but it says you shouldn't say God's name in vain. Did you just say God's name in vain?
Not even a minute.
No, you meant it, what you said. Of course you shouldn't say Hashem's name in vain just for the fun of it. But what you said was serious. People, they're afraid to say in Hebrew, Todah la'el. Say Todah la'kel. Says Rav Masa, who's kel? You can't say kel. Who gave you the right to say kel? Say Todah la'el, give thanks to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Don't be afraid. So I know there are many rabbis that say you should be careful and be careful. I even go to people's houses and they sing Shabbat songs. To the point where if you ask somebody, what's the name of the Shabbat song? They'll tell you it's Kari Bon Olam. That's what the song's called, Kari Bon Olam. That's not the name of the song though. Ya Ribon Olam. Ka is not the master of the world. Ya is the master of the world. We have to be careful when we use Hashem's name to say it seriously, but not to never say Hashem's name. So what did you solve with that? So it comes to the point where I hear people that give classes, they never say Hashem's name when they quote a pasuk. They say thank you to Hashem, but they never say thank you to Hashem. They're always saying thank you to somebody else. They want to do something for Hashem. They never use Hashem. So when are you going to use it? You sing a song. The song was written to use Hashem's name in it. So why would you take it out? Why would you take it out? One time they took out Hashem's name from a Jewish book. Which Jewish book doesn't have Hashem's name inside it? Megillat Esther. And we know that very often when it says HaMelech, the king, and it doesn't say Achashverosh afterwards, meaning it doesn't mention which king, we know that according to Jewish tradition, that word HaMelech used to be Hashem's name. The Ibn Ezra writes that Jews wrote the Megillah with Hashem's name in it. But because we wrote it, sure, Megillah has always had Hashem's name in it. But what happened? At the last chapter of Megillat Esther, it says, who wrote down the Megillah? Mordechai Esther, and then who copied it over? It was written down in the books of Paras and Madai. It was written down in the history books of these countries. And the Jewish people were very afraid of one thing. Nobody should take our book and say, oh, we don't believe in Yud Kei Vav Kei, so we're going to put in our God over there. And they were afraid that when the non-Jews were going to copy down the history books, instead of saying our God, because they don't have any interest in writing our God, they would write their own God's name. And because Esther and Mordechai knew they weren't writing a book just for the Jews, but also for the world, they decided to write HaMelech, the king of the world, the HaKadosh Baruch Hu, in order so that when they copied down the book everywhere else, they would keep the word the king. And the Jews, we know that when it says HaMelech, it means Hashem's name. But we're not supposed to do that all the time. We're not supposed to do that when we're with other Jews. We're not supposed to do that when we're speaking to ourselves. Don't be afraid. There's something special about Hashem's name.
So when do you not say Hashem's name? Not to say it in vain.
When you're in an unclean place, like in a bathroom or somewhere like that.
But you wouldn't say his name anyway if you were there.
Sometimes you do it. Sometimes people say, Baruch, oh, I shouldn't say that here. We shouldn't speak in the bathroom anyways. Or you're in a place that smells bad, or your hands are dirty. Fine. There are very rare places where you don't say Hashem's name. There are places.
When it says Lo Tisa Shem Hashem Nashav, it's for swearing.
Right. Do not use Hashem's name falsely.
That's what I was young.
Right. It's not just so again.
Our rabbis say you shouldn't use it anywhere where it's incorrect.
But in a lot of communities today, they approach you with Elohim. They approach you with if it's songs. If it's songs, it was approached to me that why they're saying God's name like that, and God. Why not say Elohim instead of Elohim? And I thought that's kosher.
We should make sure not to do it. I know people argue with us. I know. Wow. And then again, this is the rule. We spoke about this on Monday in our class and on Tuesday in our class.
This is good because
every time someone's going to say, "Oh, how come everybody else?" There's no proof in Judaism as what does everybody else do. There's no such concept. It doesn't exist by us.
So if you say to somebody, let's do the Shema, so it starts like this, but you're not saying it for real. You say Shema Yisrael. So would you use Hashem's name? Or you say
why were you saying that?
Well, supposedly you're telling somebody about it.
So I think
it starts like this, but you don't really say. You're just talking about it. So you wouldn't use Hashem's name.
Are
no?
you saying it seriously?
We were trying to explain to somebody this is how it's, or let's say this. Let's start like this.
Do you know how many times we have a bar mitzvah boy come
Yeah.
and he says, "Bachut Hashem Hamvorach." Why did you say Hashem? Because his person who taught him was
Yeah.
afraid to say Hashem's name. So he taught the bar mitzvah kid, "I'm going to teach you Hashem, and when you get to the Torah, you should translate Hashem into Yud Kip." The poor kid is shaking out of his pants by the time he gets up to the Torah. Everyone's ready to kill him with lollipops, and he doesn't know what to say. Why did we even teach him in the first place to make a bracha wrong?
Right.
Teach him correctly. Oh, you shouldn't say Hashem's name in vain. That's not Hashem's name in vain. How else is he going to learn how to say Hashem's name?
So if you supposing a kid is practicing the bracha over wine or something, but he's not doing it now. He's just practicing it so that he'll do it in the future correctly. So then you don't say Hashem's name, or you do say Hashem's name.
He would say Hashem's name, and you wouldn't answer Amen because it's not a real bracha.
So he can say it with Hashem's real name without, and he's just practicing.
That's how else is he?
Well, how's he going to learn? When I say
Because when my kids both learn for the bar mitzvah, they also learn Elokim, Hashem.
I've seen mothers do one thing that's wrong. I've seen mothers do this when their children are, let's say, this age. Maybe I'm exaggerating. 2 months older, and they want to give them a bottle. They'll go Baruch Atah, and they'll say Hashem's name. Look, and then they make the bracha. Shakol ne'abel. Oh, here's your bottle. Why did you just say bracha? First of all, he has no idea what you're saying. The second half, you're not allowed to say.
For themselves, it's okay.
But they're
Well,
not
the baby
drinking
was
anything.
drinking
They're
the
making the bracha for the baby.
So
But the baby doesn't have to make a bracha, for God's sake. That's saying Hashem's name in vain.
right, but let's say when I put him to sleep, which I do, I sing to him the Shema. I say Hashem's name because first of all, I can also say the Shema,
Right.
and I want him to hear it correctly. Now I know, right? So he's only 2 months old, but
No,
I'm
you're allowed to say
right.
Shema.
I don't make blessings with him though. Not with Hashem's name, for sure not.
I was reading Tehillim the other day, and I was approached, to say,
When?
In Tehillim?
not in our group, not in our group.
Really? So
Yes. And someone
interesting.
else read it, and they said Hashem.
That's so interesting.
The anti-bracha?
So when would you say the real name, if not then?
I don't know. Thank you for the truth.
Yeah.
So says the rabbi, the Kuzari to the rabbi.
It's the first time I hear it.
Wow.
Amar HaKuzari. Says the Kuzari.
Reading.
On page 84 at the top. Amar HaKuzari, the king says. A beautiful question. וכי זה מחייב שלא נאמין לאריסטו בחוכמתו? Is that reason enough not to believe Aristotle just because he didn't receive it in transmission? He came to a truth on his own. Are you going to reject what he's believing? He could prove it to you logically. Does logic have to have a transmission, a tradition? Could they thought of everything before? Man, the guy came to the truth. If it's true, so you should take it from it anyways. And if it's not true, so throw it away, even if it comes from a transmission. But why does it make a difference? Maybe Aristotle says something right. And we uses the word v'chize mechayev. Is it reason enough shelo na'amin, that we should not believe Aristotle in his wisdom? 2 things. We're going to dwell on the word believe in a second, but what's the question the Kuzari is asking?
Does wisdom need a history of transmission, or can it be original from one person?
What are your thoughts?
I think even more, he's saying, does every truth have to originate from God, or from the Torah specifically, or can truth be subjective? Not subjective.
Okay,
Can
I don't know
truth
that the
be
Kuzari is going to go that far, but it's also a good question, meaning we believe at the end of the day that all beliefs come from Hashem. Rav Kook has a piece in his works, Orat HaKodesh, about such a thing, that all things at the end of the day do have a divine source, whether they're right or wrong. And that's why it says, Talmidei Chachamim, Torah scholars, what do? Marbim Shalom Ba'olam, they increase peace in the world. Why do Torah scholars increase peace in the world? Because Torah scholars are able to say, even if I don't agree with you, I see the divine point in what it is you're trying to bring out. And therefore they won't fight people. They'll say, okay, I disagree with you vehemently, but there's a truth that you're bringing to the world that's important for me. That's what a Torah scholar will do. Whereas a person who thinks that he's the only one who's right, so he doesn't believe anybody else has divinity in his wisdom, then therefore they create fighting in the world. But putting that Kabbalistic notion aside, on a practical level, do I have to have transmission to be right? Do we have to, so I can't believe in Aristotle if he didn't have someone that he got his wisdom from? What do you think? The answer could be, yeah, the Kuzari is right.
I would weigh thoughts, but there's no origin, there's no source. I mean, to everything there's a source, and there's no source in philosophy.
But then that would also discredit Avraham Avinu, who was the first one who, in his capacity discovered God, and it wasn't with a transmission. So would you say that for starting from there, it all has to be transmitted?
Well, I mean, but he who wrote a commentary on the Torah put his perspective, and it necessarily didn't come from tradition, so you have to allow for original.
The Kuzari is saying, look at Aristotle's writings and then argue with him. Don't tell me that just because he's Greek, just because he's a philosopher, we don't need to care about what he has to say.
Right.
He's being very practical here. There's an answer in the question. There's an answer in the question. There is an answer that we're going to study next week. The Kuzari is going to answer this question. It says, yes, we don't believe what he says because he didn't have a transmission. But to understand that, we have to understand a few other things, and we're going to leave that for next week. Next week, we're also going to understand how a person, if they approach the truth on their own, always mixed into their truth is going to be something subjective. And people will read into things. You know those people that will read into something, and it doesn't actually say that there. But why are you reading it? Because for you it has to be that that's what it means. You're not willing to allow for a different conclusion, and therefore you have to read yourself into that text. There are many people like that in the world. Sometimes people even see things that didn't even happen because that's how they live their life.
Aren't we actually conditioned to think like that? I mean, there's some kind of an ego that we are thinking that we conditioned to think like that. We call it humanly, but aren't we conditioned like that?
Sure, we're conditioned. Doesn't mean it's a good way to think.
What is a good way to think?
It would be. Well, we're going to see next week. We're going to see what's a good way to think.
We can't think of.
But let's find an answer in the question. Tell me one problem with this question. The English translation is not good. What's the word in Hebrew here that's a problem? V'chizem mechayev, is it reason enough, shalon na'amin, that we should not believe la'aristo v'chokhmato, Aristotle's wisdom? What's the problem there?
Who says that Aristotle is wise?
Okay, we're gonna next paragraph. We're gonna talk about this. That's a good point. But let's put that word aside.
Assuming that because he was Aristotle, he was wise.
Okay, you're close. Not in the wise part, but in something else.
Transmission?
He mentions the word na'amin. Why? That's reason enough not to believe Aristotle? Belief here is the hard word.
Right.
Says the rabbi, he doesn't even say this, we're just reading it from the text. You're coming off to me now as some kind of intelligent person. Who cares if Aristotle has divine transmission or wisdom or anything, any belief system? Rather, you should accept Aristotle's teachings if they're logical. If they're logical, you should accept them. If not, you shouldn't accept them. But then he goes on to say, well, that's seemingly his question, right? He's telling the rabbi, why don't you just weigh each thing that Aristotle says and logically decide if they're right? But that's not really what this guy's saying. He uses the word belief. Is that reason enough not to believe in Aristotle? What do you mean believe in Aristotle? You just told me I should weigh things logically. Am I weighing things logically? Or am I believing in him? And the rabbi says, from here I see one thing. You didn't study Aristotle. You just believe in him. You didn't go and rip apart Aristotle's teachings. You didn't try to discover where their source is from. You didn't go through all of his logic and his understanding. You just say, I should believe in him. Why would you believe in him? Your whole basis is logic, not belief.
Because it was popular.
Oh, very nice. He's popular, and that's why everyone's believing in him. Very similar to what somebody could say about science. Now, I'm not an anti-scientist. There are rabbis who are. I'm not. Baruch Hashem. I don't see much of a problem. But those who do, the question is, do you believe in science? Do you believe that just because someone wears a white lab coat, you have to believe everything they say? No.
I'm sorry, what was it?
It's people today. They're not philosophy. They believe in science. I'm not against science. Like I said before, I'm not one of those rabbis. I leave those for I don't know, ISIS. We're Baruch Hashem. Not like that. Science has its place in the world of divine wisdom. It's done a lot to reveal Hashem in the world. Things that we never did without science. Science has brought a lot of belief of HaKadosh Baruch Hu into the world. And the question really is, do you believe in science, or do you evaluate scientific theory, scientific proofs, and say this makes sense, this doesn't make sense? You can't just believe someone because they wear a white lab coat. Says the rabbi, you have a problem in your words. You're saying, why not believe in Aristotle? Saying because Aristotle is not the kind of guy you believe. He's the kind of guy who you weigh his logic, but you don't want to weigh his logic because you come from a world where everything Aristotle says is good to go. That's the problem. And that's the rabbi saying. You want to think? What's the proper way to think? Think. Don't believe. Think. Don't believe everything everybody tells you. Levarer. This is a rule in life. It's a good rule in life. When you hear someone from something, don't believe it to be true. Most people are liars. Most people. 99% of people in the world. What do you mean liars? Not even malicious liars. They tell you a story. They don't bother to do their research into the facts. They just tell you the story the way they understood the story. Or they'll tell you a story with their own twist on the story, or their own detail on the story, or by the time the story gets to you, it's not the same story that actually happened. So what is that person? Not a malicious liar, but they're definitely a liar. They're not malicious. I'm not being mean to them. They're liars.
Twisting the truth.
So you shouldn't believe what someone tells you. You know how many times this has saved me? When someone comes to tell me something, I say, okay, I'm going to look into it myself. And then I call the other person. Oh, there's a whole different story you didn't tell me about. And I call this person back. And then you find out everyone's lying to you. Okay, that's the way of the world. When you hear something, when you see something, look, the word in Hebrew is levarer. Do your research. And if you do research, you'll realize that most of the things that you hear that are negative or positive, they're actually true.
That would beg to the question, how do you get the truth, even with research? Because even the research can be exaggerated.
Absolutely. It's a truth is a tough thing.
Yeah.
To come to the truth.
After they saw something, right? It's like they didn't believe, and God automatically
The Rambam writes that we didn't believe in Moshe Rabbeinu because he did miracles. Because miracles, anyone could do miracles. So, says the Rambam, we believed in Moshe Rabbeinu because the things that he said were going to happen happened. Not miracles. Moshe Rabbeinu took us to HaShamayim. Moshe Rabbeinu spoke to... Moshe Rabbeinu did. He wasn't just a belief system. We experienced things ourselves. And so then we said, okay, what's belief for us?
So he was credible.
Credible. Very nice. This is the best definition of emunah. Emunah comes from the Hebrew word of imun, trust. Or also what else? Imun, which is practice. You know, when you do like exercise, kind of litamen. What does that mean? Okay, I don't have any reason to believe. I don't have any reason to believe Hashem can do something. I've never seen him. I know he did something, and there he did something. The third time, so okay, now I already believe that HaKadosh Baruch Hu does whatever he does. It's not emunah. It's not a blind faith like the people like to translate. Faith. We don't have faith. We have trust. Trust. What is trust? Trust is not unfounded. This person says and he delivers. Baruch gozer umkayim. He says and he does what he says he's going to do. And so once I see okay, look, they tried to kill us in Egypt and he took us out of there. They tried to kill us in Israel, took us out. They tried to kill us, the Romans and the Greeks and the Inquisition and the Crusaders and the Holocaust. And I guess we're still here. HaKadosh Baruch Hu said that I'll never ever destroy Am Yisrael. Baruch Shomer Avtachato Yisrael. Hashem kept his promise. I no longer believe in Hashem. It's not a belief. It's not a matter of belief. There's nothing to believe. It's a matter of trust. I trust Hashem. I know that Hashem comes through. That's the definition of the word emunah. But when a Kuzari uses the word emunah, it's not what he means by emunah. When a Kuzari uses the word emunah, he means faith. And says the rabbi, no, you can't have faith in a person. You have to research. So I agree with your first step. Believe in a person if you do that research. But don't just believe in him. Don't just believe in him. And that's the message for this week. Don't just believe. Do your research. You don't have to always question. You don't have to always never believe. That's not also a healthy way of life. Sometimes just to let people be, let people live, let people... But at the end of the day, for yourself, hold yourself to a higher standard. Do your research. Don't be one of those people who think. Be your own person.
So a question there, you mentioned that all people, 95% people are liars, and I tend to agree with that. How did oral law, after 1500 years, was written down after it's been taught from one to another with a twist? Everybody had a twist on that. How was it written down where we value that so much today? 1500 years, 1300 years, so many generations, so many twisting, and eventually it's being written down. Now we've got something. But from the beginning to when it was written down, it was mouth to mouth to mouth.
It wasn't so long. It wasn't so long.
What do you mean?
In the introduction to the Rambam, he makes a count. It's a few generations. Wasn't so long. From the time that we received the Torah until the time that we wrote down the time that we finished writing down the oral Torah was 40 generations.
40. So, what do you say to
40
that?
generations is not so long.
We're talking, if we had to repeat what you just told us here, okay, it would be a different story between all of us probably.
Sure, if you were a normal...
The CT is that he gathered all the sages at his time, and they each told him what they heard. So he actually recorded everything.
How did he record it?
Right.
took
That's when
notes,
they
yeah.
wrote it down. Rabbi Yonatan Halevy.
Mm-hmm.
He mu'arach.
But Yonatan Halevy is the first generation or is the 40th generation?
He's the 40th.
He's the 40th generation. So my
So-
question
He
goes
took
back to...
Somewhere in the
but
middle.
he
He's not the
took the
40th either.
sages.
He's not the 40th. He's like
Can I just say something?
30.
When you said before everybody's a liar, so I think what we really want to say is not everybody is careful about the transmission of the information.
Oh.
But
You just answered Ariela's question.
Right, because I think when it came to the oral Torah, people were extremely careful about the transmission of the information. So it was the truth. It was accurate because you pay really close attention. You make sure it gets transmitted exactly correctly from father to son. It wasn't like something you were just saying.
It wasn't a story, it was a
They
lacha.
really paid great attention. They took great effort to make sure the transmission was accurate from father to son, No?
When you go to a sofer, which about mezuzot, why do you go to the sofer to buy mezuzot? Why don't you just go to an artist? Say, here, you know how to write these letters. Take a ink,
It's
take the kosher.
credible. It's back to being
What does that have
But
credible?
what makes them credible?
If the sofer makes a mistake, he takes this mezuzah, rolls it up, and puts it in the garbage. Maybe not the real garbage, but a geniza garbage. When a sofer makes a mistake in writing a Sefer Torah, he takes, depending on the mistake, takes his scraper and scrapes out the whole page. Starts over again. So we don't tolerate mistakes. We don't handle mistakes. Normal people, they don't care. So what it says, this word, that word, vav here, yud there, big deal. I was giving a drasha in Israel to a group of Israelis. After I decided I'm not going to give drashot in Israel anymore. And I said, why is this parasha? It says with a vav and not without a vav. And the guy said, if it didn't have the vav, you would ask the question the other way around anyway. It doesn't make a difference. You would ask the same question if it was the other way around. Because for him, he doesn't value that we have a certain way of how we write things. And that's why we don't base our Judaism on street Jews. We base our Judaism only on real Jews, on educated Jews, on Jews who have not just a transmission, but a way of thought, a way of learning, a way that we have taken from Moshe Rabbeinu. So you have a disagreement among our rabbis. Most of the disagreements between our rabbis have nothing to do with the past. Most of the disagreements with our rabbis have nothing to do with what Moshe Rabbeinu said. Most of the disagreements between our rabbis have to do with how do I apply old rules to situations that didn't exist when Moshe Rabbeinu was around. Most of our disagreements are not in the oral tradition. Some, very rare. You don't find Jews somewhere black tefillin and somewhere gold tefillin and somewhere purple tefillin. Everyone's wearing the same tefillin. Everyone's wearing the same talit. So what do we disagree on? We disagree on certain details that didn't exist once upon a time. For example, one rabbi will tell you that electricity is like this in Shabbat. No, electricity is like that in Shabbat. No, so what was the oral law? There was no oral law about electricity. Rather, the dispute is, how do I take Moshe Rabbeinu's rules regarding fire and apply them over to electricity? One rabbi says they apply 100%. One rabbi says, I don't know about 100%. They apply 50%. And so then you'll have a disagreement. Most of the time in the Gemara, that's where we disagree. We disagree in the oral law, not about oral tradition, but rather in current issues that we had brought up.
Yeah, no, it was eye-opening also the other day, just like you mentioned Elohim, and if you remember you told us about the Sephardi way when you light candles. So it came up, how you light candles for Rosh Hashanah, and so we ran how we're doing candles for the Ashkenazi way. And I voiced that the Sephardi way is, you actually do the bracha first, just like when you eat, you first do the bracha and then and it wasn't known. It was not known. It had to be researched to find out that it is so.
I'm going to end the class for a moment.